It was late one evening when Alice, a young woman in her mid-twenties, stumbled upon an old, dusty antique shop in a narrow alleyway of Kyoto. The shop, tucked away from the bustling streets, had an air of mystery about it. Its wooden sign was faded, and the windows were clouded with grime. Inside it was cluttered with all manner of oddities: worn-out books, tarnished jewellery, and eerie statues.
As I wandered through the shop, something caught my eye: a small, intricately crafted Japanese doll. The doll was exquisite, with porcelain skin, delicate features, and long jet-black hair that flowed down its back. It was dressed in a vibrant red kimono adorned with gold patterns. Despite its beauty, there was something unsettling about its glassy, lifelike eyes that seemed to follow my every move.
That doll has a dark history. It's said to be cursed.
How much?
I must warn you, this doll is not just a toy. It belonged to a young girl many years ago. She was wronged, and her spirit is said to still reside within. Are you sure you want to take it?
Despite his warning, Alice purchased the doll, thinking it would make a unique addition to her collection of curiosities. That night, Alice placed the doll on a shelf in her bedroom, admiring its craftsmanship before heading to bed. The room was dark, save for the faint light of the moon seeping through the curtains. As she drifted off to sleep, she thought she heard a faint whisper, but when she opened her eyes, there was nothing but silence. At around 3 a.m., Alice woke up abruptly. The room was freezing cold, and her breath was visible in the air.
The doll, which I had left on the shelf, was now sitting on my nightstand facing me. Its lifelike eyes seemed more intense, more alive. Shaken, I reached out to touch the doll, only to feel a sharp sting as if I had been pricked by a needle. Startled, I pulled my hand back, noticing a small drop of blood on my finger. I quickly dismissed it as my imagination playing tricks on me and went back to sleep, but the unease lingered.
Over the next few days, strange things began to happen in Alice's apartment. She would hear soft, childlike giggling coming from the doll's direction, even when she was alone. Objects around the house would move on their own. Her keys would disappear, only to be found later in odd places. Doors would creak open and the temperature in the room would drop suddenly.
One evening, while brushing my hair in front of the mirror, I saw the doll's reflection behind me. But it wasn't on the shelf where I had placed it. Instead, it was standing on the floor, much closer, almost as if it had moved on its own. I spun around, but the doll was back on the shelf, sitting exactly where it had been. My heart raced and a sense of dread washed over me. I knew something was terribly wrong.
Chapter 4. The Revelation. Desperate to understand what was happening, Alice returned to the antique shop, but when she arrived, the shop was gone.
What? How is this possible? It was right here!
In its place was an empty lot, as if the store had never existed. Confused and scared, she decided to research the doll's origins. Alice discovered a tale of a young girl named Hannah, who had lived over a century ago.
Hannah, who are you?
Hannah had been the daughter of a wealthy merchant, but she was tragically murdered by a jealous servant who had been in love with her father. The doll had been Hannah's most cherished possession, a gift from her late mother. After Hannah's death, her spirit was said to have attached itself to the doll, seeking revenge on anyone who dared to take it from her.
Oh no, what have I done?
Terrified, Alice tried to rid herself of the doll. She threw it into a nearby river, hoping that would be the end of it. But that night, as she lay in bed, she heard the familiar giggling again. Slowly, she turned her head, and there at the foot of her bed stood the doll, soaking wet, its kimono dripping water onto the floor.
No, this can't be happening.
Alice's fear turned to panic. She tried everything, burning the doll, burying it, even tearing it apart, but every time it would reappear in her home, each time closer to her, each time more sinister. On the final night, the giggling was louder than ever. The room was freezing and the lights flickered. Alice could feel the presence of something else in the room, something cold and malevolent.
Please, leave me alone.
The doll's eyes glowed in the dark, and as Alice backed away, she felt a small hand grip her ankle. She screamed and fell, scrambling to escape, but it was too late. The last thing she saw before everything went black was the doll's face, inches from her own, its eyes full of rage, its mouth twisted into a cruel smile.
No!
Days later, Alice's friends reported her missing. When the police arrived at her apartment, they found no signs of a struggle, only a cold, empty room with a strange doll sitting on the bed.
This is so strange. She wouldn't just disappear like this.
We found no evidence of foul play. It's like she just vanished.
The doll was dry, its kimono pristine, its eyes as lifeless as porcelain. The case was closed as a disappearance. A few weeks later, the doll reappeared in the window of a new antique shop across town, waiting patiently for its next owner.
This case is closed, but something doesn't feel right.
I can't shake the feeling that doll has something to do with it.